Sveiki atvykę į svečius į Auriką internetu. Šią valandą skirsime pasikalbėti apie tvarias etiketes.
And this hour will be about talking about new packaging, and technologists will be talking to me. And this meeting will consist of three parts. The first one is the message. The second one is replies to my pre-made questions, and the third part is answering your questions, which you will actually ask during the delivery of the message. You have the questions tab on the right, and you can actually click it to add questions. This meeting will be recorded, and we will deliver the video of the meeting in a couple of days. And the questions that we will not be able to answer during the meeting, we will answer afterwards via email. So these are my colleagues, technologists. This is Edward. He's the chief technologist of the company. He's the head of the technologist. I think that he has phenomenal remembering. And the labeling technologist, Thomas, is near him. And we call him Temukas. And this is the person that when he hears the word problem, his eyes come on fire. He eats challenges 3 times a day. And today, with our team, we will talk about labeling. I'm Justus from the marketing team, and I will be moderating this meeting. So, colleagues, this is your time. Please, 20 minutes for the message. Please tell us all you know about the sustainable labeling. As Justus said, I'm Edward, the chief technologist. And during this meeting, we will try to talk and discuss a topic, quite a difficult topic, and we will try to familiarize you with the terms and the ways to actually reach sustainability. So the general question is, which actually objectives can we reach in sustainability with our produced labels? The main targets and objectives are two. Is to reduce. It's actually reduce waste and help nature, and we can help nature and preserve nature by reducing the fossil resources, the fossil raw resources. So the 3 topics is to improve the recycling of the first wine containers, reduce the fossil fuel made plastics, and to reduce the raw material used for containers. We will tell you the practices that we actually tried and tested, and we will deliver those to you. So the first one is the improvement of the recycling of the primary containers. The first way to do that and the first way is labeling, which comes off easily off the containers. So the first raw material and the first type of label, we have the largest scope of them. We make them out of thermo compounds, from films, from paper. These are the labels with wash-off. These are wash-off labels, which are used for the primary and secondary containers. And the principle of the activity, the principles of the use of the wash-off label is using the wash-off glue. Usually used for beverages, alcoholic beverages, various plastic bottles. And the point of sustainability here is that the use of 85 degrees centigrade water to wash off the label from the container. And if you want to reduce the temperature from 85 degrees Celsius, we would we have to use natrium solution to remove the wash-off glue from for example, a bottle or a container, and those containers can be used again. For example, to use it as a vase, for example, we can use again. We can use the bottle again, and of course, we can recycle and return the container to the recycling point. The second uh, the second type of labels are the clean flake labels. It's not a new type of labels. It's made for the PET plastics, and PET plastics can be recycled up to 10 times. And it's not a surprise that actually the clean flake labels were made for the PET bottles. And PET bottles are recycled by shredding. And the essence of all of this technology is that you can actually, with clean flake labels, we can actually thread everything together with the bottle, with the label, and then, due to the difference of weight, the PET shreddings go down, and the label shreddings go up in the water because of the difference of the weight. That way, you can be separate. You can separate the label from the PET bottle, and that's where the name comes from, clean flake. Another one which we tested actually in our productions with just regular temperature water just in a simple utilitarian sink. These are the solvable. It's basically 30 seconds of water stream, and the label comes off, totally comes off. Under not a very large temperature, you can use a dishwasher, and therefore this label is suitable for secondary use containers. And we both print flexography and digital print. And we were able to print on that. It's not completely white, it's somewhat white, actually, but we were able to print with both methods on those labels. And the next way is to reduce the fossils to use in the production of labels. Means reducing the amount of fossil raw material plastics. And in order to use less of those fossil raw materials, we usually use renewable resources. We will present you a couple of examples. So one of the first one would be the forest film, because as a technologist, I see large perspectives for the forest film. For example, if you compare it to clay on clay or PP or P, basically all the same qualities. You can actually see the product through it. It's clear. If you want a clear label, well, of course, it can be also white. And it's made from cellulose production remains. Our good colleague Matthew said, when he delivered this product to us, he said, so basically, it's made with acrylic glue. It's basically made of pine cones, but we have to call it a label made from the cellulose remains of the cellulose production. One of the first raw resources that were delivered to the market was the PLA labels. Polylactic acid-based labels. Basically made out of corn. And we have actually transferred to the second topic, because one of the main qualities of the PLA label is that it's biodegradable. We're talking about biofilm here, and we should not forget that this group of bio biofilms is separated into two groups, is into bio-based labels, and the other one is the biodegradable films. And in this case, PLA, it's entered the market with a boom because it's one of the films, and its specificity because it's both bio-based and biodegradable. And while talking about composting, we should actually say that there are two types of composting: outdoors conditions and industrial composting. We will talk about that if we have time. I would also like to mention that PLA can be either clear or white, has great operational qualities, and can be produced both with wash-off glue and with regular glue. As different type of renewable resource produced labels is polyethylene label of bio-based origin. To put it simply, it takes any green mass, can be some sort of waste from bioproduction, for example, some sort of crops. Then it's composted. The ethylene is collected, turned into polyethylene, and then through extrusion, through the process of extrusion, you get the labels, the film actually. And PE is one of the films for labels which is produced. It is sad, but we cannot yet use the technology does not allow us to use 100% of bio products. It's usually 80% of organic origin of raw materials. It's sad, but 20% comes of the raw materials is made from fossil. Is recycled with usual polyethylene. So basically, these films contain different percentages of recycled materials. Technologies actually develop, and the objective would be to reach 100% of raw materials, of green raw materials. Type of labels that we had to print. These are not regular products for glued products. Basically, it's grass paper, hemp paper. Usually, their specificity is that they're not white. They're gray. They're yellow. They really have a facture. Basically, it has texture, and you should probably use some in-thinking for the design of your labels with the use of this type of paper, because basically you can use the texture and the original color of the grass or hemp paper, and it can be recycled for like 7 times. And you need a lot less material, a lot less resources than to produce a regular paper, because basically there's a lot of grass in the cities, for example, waste grass that goes to waste, and you need less energy to do that. And the next type of being sustainable is to reduce the use of raw materials. Recycled materials used for the production of labels help us to reduce the raw material usage, and one of these is recycled paper. That's the most popular raw material, because basically it's made with various types of glues, which is important for our clients, because we want to glue that in universal conditions on books. We sometimes would like to glue it on some sort of plastics, for example, which is harder to glue on. So we can use We can use recycled papers with all types of glue, special type, any types of glue. It's not completely white, as we've used to standard A4 page. You can print both flexography and digital printing on that. We have examples of labels printed on recycled papers. You could also print with carbon type when you need to add additional information on the label. And currently, this is one of the most popular types of raw materials. It's the easiest to adapt to the current paper labels, which the clients are actually used to. So basically, that's would be the raw material. The second is the second type is the recycled initiatory material labels. The R goes for recycled, so recycled PE and recycled PET. Polyethylene and polypropylene are the most popular right now. Basically, they do not differ at all from the regular labels from PE or PTE made from fossils. Has the same characteristics as we said before regarding the plastics. We do not use 100% reused polyethylene because we have some limitations. We need to use some sort of fossil raw materials because of the limitations of the technology. And one of the fascinating types of raw materials for labels, because it's the coffee cup paper. It's 100% recycled paper. Coffee cup paper, as I said, is 100% recycled raw materials. And to produce coffee cup paper, 50% of materials should be made out of the coffee cups, actually. Totally white, matte, is not chalked, 100 to 120 microns in thickness. It's quite hard, so it's basically quite easy to glue on something. But it is not that popular right now. But this is really exotic because it's made out of actual coffee cups. And the next group is labels from recycled organic waste. I have a couple of examples. And that's the next term. The next type of materials used for recycling. So the first example is a very specific thing. We call it marble base, basically because this paper is made from marble chalk, basically, from marble dust, which is industrial waste. We use industrial waste to produce paper. And while talking about sustainability, there are two types of resources which can be recycled into secondary raw materials, recycled raw materials. Those are either post-industrial waste and post-consuming waste. And if at some point of time you will see some shortings, you would see that those basically are the post-industrial or post-consumer waste used for recycling. So the newest paper made is either from sugarcane waste or wine waste. The producers of materials out of recycled materials, they try and search for more and more raw materials that they can actually use to produce papers or film. And at the end of this presentation, we would like to share some of our conclusions. So, what value is created by recyclable labels? So, as I said at the beginning of the presentation, they help to reduce the amount of waste because they help to recycle the actual container on which the label was glued on. Another important sustainability factor is segregation, basically separating waste. And proper labels help the consumers to actually separate waste, and that waste goes to separate containers, and that helps. The labels are also the labels that are made in a sustainable way or from recycled materials. They help the owners of the goods to achieve sustainability and to demonstrate their friendliness towards nature. Another very important characteristic is the value created by recycled to improves recycling of the container itself, and therefore more is recycled and more recycled products circulate in the economy. And another important moment is an educational activity. And some of the while using marking and labeling technologies which are green and recyclable, owners of the labels can actually attract some of the clients that are fans of sustainability, who can therefore become their new clients. And basically, this is everything that we want to say during our presentation, and we tried to explain quite a comprehensive topic, and maybe we would have some questions. The topic was quite hard. You provided a lot of you presented a lot of ways to make labels recyclable, but I have a couple of questions written down. So the first one would be, what hardships can owners of labels face when they would like to go green and go recyclable and go sustainable? There's a list of problems, of course, lots of issues, from legal to emotional. We'll start from the more objective ones, more objective issues. First of all, the legal base is not harmonized at all. There's more than 10 organizations that regulate if the product is sustainable or not in some way or another. And it's a shame, but they sometimes fail to communicate between themselves. And we had a very great and a good seminar by a company, UPM Braflatak, and how their sustainability specialist said, currently, they said in a correct way that currently seeking sustainability is shooting at a moving target, basically, because the laws are not and regulations are not harmonized. The second thing is, which limits the use of sustainable labeling, is that there's a regulation, but there's no technological solution. For example, one of the decisions was to use the wash-off labels, for example. Everything is all right, everything is great, but the top serviceable temperature of these labels plus 60, and some, for example, of the clients use hot products, because some, for example, ketchup, which comes out of the tube at 80 to 90 degrees, and alas, such labels could not be used on such bottling. So there's a problem that some of the technologies are yet to catch up to the current requirements. The second thing is the second issue is that when we have a very wide geography of our activities, for example, because the different requirements for recycling in Sweden compared to France, and our marketing specialists usually find that an issue. For example, a case related to French market. Uh, Clients require the tub, the, con- the container made out of polyethylene, require a washable, wash-off PE label. This is not because they're made out of the same material, but the regulation that was issued to the European Union were applied in France in accordance to the technology and the equipment that they have in France. They adapted those regulations in that country. That's not the only example. We see another type. We see it's the situation in other countries, for example, and it doesn't even make it easy to go sustainable for the producers as much as for us, for the label producers. And one of another issues, for example, when we started producing bioplastic, is an ethical question. Is it ethical to use land for the production of raw materials, for example, because in some of the countries there are people lacking food and we're using for raw materials the green stuff and the arable land. Currently, I would like to present you information because basically only 2% of arable land is used for raw materials, and only a 10,000th part of that is used for raw plastic as raw materials for plastic production. So those are the questions that you have to ask yourself in order to understand the thing. Thank you for your reply. I will forget the numbers, but still, thank you very much. And a question to you: what would be the main what are the main requirements of the label for the product to be sustainable? First of all, both the label raw material and the container should have the same material. For example, if the label is made of PE, so the container should also be made out of PE, polypropylene. And the same, for example, if the label is PE, the container should be PE. It's one of the examples. For example, one of the good examples is when they took out the drinks beverages straws. They took out the plastic ones and they put in the paper-made ones, but laced with plastic, because basically the all plastic straw was a lot easier to be recycled than the combined material, both paper and plastic straw. So the main idea is that the raw materials of both the container and the label should be the same. Maybe even, for example, for a paper container, you could use a recycled paper label, for example, but they should be the same. I remember you said the coffee cup material used out of coffee cups. So maybe sometimes they will use these straws, raw materials. But yeah, sadly, the new ones, which replace the old ones, are only good for burning. Total trash. So we also talked about budget issues and money. So question to you, Edward. Price. What should we do to allow ourselves to mark and label our products with green and sustainable labeling? Yes, we should accept that currently, at the moment, recycled materials are more expensive than materials used from, for example, fossil materials or unsustainable resources. We need to think one step ahead. If we cannot change the materials, we can sometimes change something from our side. First of all, we need to assess the design that we print in a critical way, because Thomas said very good, there's no point of painting over 3 times some sort of label, for example, that is made of material which has its own great color and texture. So we can reduce colors in labeling, And reduction of colors not only just reduces cost, it makes all of the printing processes faster. We will use less washers. Even that type of secondary recycling, secondary sustainability. Then again, in reduction of cost, we can reduce the size of the label because sometimes the label covers the container, for example, from all sides. The size of the label is, first of all, directly related to price. Reduce the size of the label, you reduce the price. The price depends on its size, but it also affects recycling because, as I said, segregation is one of the essential problems of recycling because during the separation of waste, I think infrared detectors detect is it a plastic or steel or aluminum can, or for example glass. And in order to take care of sustainability, we cannot cover all of the container with the label. So because the detectors should actually detect what type of material the container is made of. So yes, two main factors is the size of the label and the amount of colors. One of the last questions, my questions, and you can also still ask questions. If we will not be able to answer it right now, we will answer it later via email. So Thomas, you are a label technologist, and you basically approve all of the labels that our clients print at our printing house. Can you have any interesting story? Yes, yes, because we had forest film. We were surprised by the material out of grass, made out of grass labels, and basically they had the no label look on water, for example, and they used forest film for that. And to ask them how successful was that we did not even need to remove the line, the printing, the gluing line, because it was totally good. It was made out of cellulose. That was the forest film, and they liked the texture. For example, when they left more of the open material, did not print on all of it, but when they found the texture. They found the texture, and the clients actually found the texture of one of the labels. The clients were happy, for example. So basically, that means that today we can already print more sustainable labels. We have more than 10 minutes left to answer the questions that, well, our viewers actually asked. I will read them now. Do you work with packaging solutions? Yes, we do. There's a lot of questions. We may not be able to answer all of them. I work for 20 more and more years with packaging. We have achieved good results. We produce mono packaging, fully recyclable, in commercial amounts. Romaldas asks, hello? What is industrial composting? Maybe you can answer. To tell the truth, when we hear the words packaging of film and it being composted, we think of we think of it being thrown away in a compost dump and dissolving by itself. It's not working like that. There's not a lot of films that can actually be used for just straight composting. Sometimes they use from starch, basically. That's one of the only materials. Yes, we have bags are made out of that. So basically, they're composted in industrial way, not the regular ways. Industrial composting means that we need to collect all of the waste and keep them in high humidity, about 90%. The temperature should be approximately 60 degrees, and there should be special microorganisms in there. And the result of the activities of such microorganisms is increasing humidity and biomass and temperature. I know, for example, that all of the waste goes to biocomposting in Iceland, and in some regions of Italy, they also declare that they compose all of the waste in an industrial way. And there's special, yes, there's some resources involved because you need to upkeep the temperature, for example. Inga Petkevichina, I would like to ask a question. A laminate packaging is made from PE. Can we replace PE with recycled PE? Laminate packaging line currently is made of PE, and we change it with RPE, recycled PE. So basically, RPE will not differ at all from the current PE. Everything is the same, the thickness is the same, the glues are the same, everything is basically almost the same. And we will definitely find something to replace that. And if we have PPE or PPE on PE container, would that be sustainable? Not really, actually. We should actually mention two ways of going to sustainability. We usually would like to use raw materials to recycle and to have the same materials with the same quality. So basically, if we have a label and we recycle it into a chair, for example, it's downward recycling. I'm not a chemic, of course, but basically, I might be wrong, but the materials are polyolefins, and maybe there are some technologies to recycle them, but that would be downcycling. And it may be, for example, that it may be burned, for example, as a plastic pallet. Roman says, what is industrial composting? Have you already answered that question? Virginius says, hello. Hi, Virginius.
Virginijus vėl klausė, ar turite idėjų generatorių įmonėje, kuris patartų, atrastų kartu su užsakovu, ieškant pakuočių sprendimų.
Do you have any types of solutions for a generator company to find packaging? So if a person looks for sustainable packaging, can we help them? Yes, we can help those people, but we would need to find out what is the path towards sustainability. Does he want his packaging to be recycled, or does he want to use recycled or sustainable materials? There are different ways towards sustainability, and we tried to present all of them. First of all, we would need to consult that person, and yes, we can help. And our sales team, for example, work towards that and can consult our clients. Skaistė asks, are there any alternatives to the new e-mold labeling? I haven't heard of recycled materials used with e-mold, because e-mold is polypropylene, and depending on the size of the container, it can be bio-oriented or cast polypropylene. But I've seen the new catalogs. Sometimes they work with some effects, maybe, but not towards the recycling. And sometimes they go through thickness. Sometimes we used orange peel effect. It was 70 microns, right now it's 65 microns, and they go towards sustainability through thickness, maybe. Because basically it goes thinner and thinner. Maybe that's the tendency basically to make it
Bet tai yra
slimmer, to make it smaller.
įspausti iš tikrųjų.
But basically that's for the mold perfectionists. That's their challenge, and we need to work with them.
Vaivos klausimas. Kokias etiketės iš aptartų siūlytumėte šaldytuve laikomiems produktams ir kokius klijus?
Which of the labels would you recommend to use for refrigerated products? Standard temperature is plus, it's over zero.
Įvairūs popieriai gali būti, jos galima taigi ir užlakuoti, kad neįgertų drėgmės, nes šaldytuvo temperatūra yra teigiama, tai turbūt išvardintų visas žaliavas būtų.
And in this case, there can be a lot of different materials. For example, we can use hemp, paper, grass, recycled types, PE. All of the products will be good. And the most important thing would be the container on which we actually glue something.
Geriausiai parenkama, kad būtų bendra kompozicija, būtų vienalytė.
So basically, the best option would be for the single material, for example, used on the container. So maybe not all of those. Maybe those wash-offable can they actually be washed off because of the water in the refrigerator, for example, in the fridge? Do you have a film solution for the glass bottles so that it can be actually deposited into our system?
Stiklas tai yra žaliava, kuri gali būti perdirbama.
Glass is a material that can actually be recycled the most times.
Geriausiai perdirbama žaliava. Dabar tam, kad ją panaudot antrą kartą tą butelį, aišku,
in order to use it a second time, you need to wash it off. Yes, there are labels, yes, made out of film that come with wash-off glue. You just need to know that if it's made out of water, for example, the label is made out of water. So basically, you should understand that if, for example, use paper-based label with wash-offable glue, you should know that it would be a short time to wash off because it penetrates the paper and the films. The labels with wash-off glue, they are washed off with a film from bottles, but it takes quite a lot of time. It also includes the question of how many. It depends on how much actually we print on that. For example, paper label. For example, how much do we paint on it? For example, if we paint a lot of it or make it with film elements, for example, it will be washed off during a longer time. For example, it will be less convenient to wash off. How to actually recycle the packaging that's left after labels that are actually used, the label waste after labeling. Usually they say, it's probably saying about the silicone packaging. There's a problem with recycling it, specifically because of the silicone. It was a total waste, only used for burning up to recently, but a couple of years ago, our suppliers presented a material that is made out of recycled siliconized paper. That's the question of hard question of collection. And segregation is one of the essential things. And we're currently not collecting such siliconized paper, but the technology is there to recycle it. Or maybe it has a PET base, so you can actually, recycle it as plastic, as PET as plastic. I look that we currently answered all of the questions, but there are some questions for the the period that we will answer actually afterwards. So we actually ask of you to provide more questions and ask more questions and order our catalog of our products, of our labels. So please look and feel and try to wash off the labels and ask for our catalogs and for our real labels. And to summarize the topic of sustainability of the labels, we could say that it's kind of a hard path to follow, especially if you're going alone. And we believe that on this path, everyone should work together, both the consumer, the designer, the print house, and including the buyer. We need to go on the path to sustainability all together. We have some time. I will also share with you a news about one company and a couple of notes. The news are in the production of labels, we have installed foodstuff standards, foodstuff safety standards in production of labels, and we're starting to do it. What will it deliver? If your product goes outside of the Baltic states or you work with large trademarks, this will be useful to you. You would have a special marking that you're working with a print house that has foodstuff security standards. And a couple of notes. If you did not try our self-service for labels, which can be used 24/7, you can even track the life cycle of your product. And it's very easy to repeat the question, to repeat the order. We ask of you to try it out. Please talk to your contact, talk to our product representatives, our marketing personnel, or write directly to us. And the second note is we have an electronic data exchange system. So if you have yourself an order management system, and we have one, because basically the data comes from your system, it's different than the ones that come to us, but we can actually harmonize your system and our system. This will be beneficial to both of us. So we saved some sort of a little bit of time. So I encourage everyone during that time, please write some reviews, and we need some feedback. Please write to us. Please inform us if anything is what was good, what was bad. Did you like it? What are we doing? Basically, is it useful? And please have some coffee. We'll have some 10 more minutes. Thank you to colleagues. Thank you to everyone who helps us to perform. And thanks to all. Goodbye.